The morning sunlight spilled across the quiet neighborhood like a warm promise, but for Arden Hale, it felt more like a spotlight shining on a life he could barely hold together. He stood in his modest kitchen, sleeves pushed up, hair in a messy knot he hadn't bothered fixing, staring down at his cracked phone screen. A single message blinked back at him, one he had meant to send to his best friend as a joke, as a release, as the breath he desperately needed after another exhausting night. Instead, it had gone to someone else, someone terrifying, someone powerful, someone he would have rather dug a hole in the earth than text accidentally. It had gone to Celestine Ward, the cold, impossibly brilliant CEO of Ward Industries, the woman whose name alone made entire boardrooms sit straighter. And worst of all, the message was flirty, a stupid, reckless, wildly flirty text, and 5 minutes later she was standing outside his house. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and surprising twists life throws our way, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel Stories of Kindness to help us bring more moments like this to life. Arden froze when he spotted her through the window. A tailored grey suit, sunglasses worth more than his monthly rent, hair pulled into a sleek low bun, and the unreadable posture of someone who commanded worlds. And she was on his sidewalk, in front of his peeling garden fence, looking at his front door like it had personally offended her. Arden's heart hammered as he wiped flour off his hands. He'd been baking bread for his 8-year-old daughter, Neera, because it was the only thing that consistently made her smile since her mother had walked out 2 years earlier. He had been trying, always bending his life around her needs while holding back the gnawing fears clawing at him from the inside. Money was tight, time was tighter, and energy, real energy, felt like a luxury long gone. Sending that text had been a moment of brain-fogged stupidity. But now it was real. Celestine Ward was outside, and she wasn't leaving. He opened the door with a trembling breath, sunlight painting a sharp glow around her. She didn't smile. She didn't flinch. She didn't even blink. "I came to confirm," she said, voice smooth and commanding, whether that message was really for me. Arden wanted to evaporate. Earlier that morning, the message had read, "If you ever need someone to warm up that Ice Queen heart, I volunteer." Sent at 6:07 a.m., sent while half asleep, sent to the wrong contact. But now, as he stared at Celestine, her presence so powerful and so wrong in the quiet normalcy of his street, something shifted inside him, fear, embarrassment, shame, all tangled into desperation, and something else, an ache too deep and old to name, rose to the surface. He told her the truth. He told her it was a mistake. He told her he was sorry. What he didn't expect was the faintest curve, almost a smirk, touching her lips. Not quite soft, not quite mocking. Something else entirely. Something curious. "I thought so," she said, "but I wanted to see who had the nerve." Her eyes moved past him into the house, scanning the walls, the shoes scattered near the door, the scent of baking bread filling the air. Arden felt small under her observation, like she could see every cracked piece of his life. But then her expression changed completely when Neera ran into the hallway holding her worn sketchbook, asking if the bread was ready yet. Celestine blinked, twice. The rigid CEO exterior flickered. Children had that effect on people, even the stone-faced ones. Arden ushered Celestine inside because she didn't turn away, she simply followed, as if curiosity pulled her like gravity. Neera waved at her openly, unfiltered, the way children do when they don't know they're supposed to be intimidated. Celestine softened by a degree, maybe half a degree, but for someone like her, that was monumental. Inside the kitchen, the day brightened into something warmer. Arden explained again how the text was a mistake. Celestine asked why he was up at dawn sending messages at all, and he told her, because he was tired, because he was trying, because single parenting was a constant marathon with no finish line, and because sometimes you send stupid texts when your body is running on fumes and your mind is living on hope alone. Celestine listened, really listened. Her posture shifted from business stance to something human, something tender, like maybe she knew a thing or two about exhaustion too, though born from a different world, corporate strategies, boardroom wars, the loneliness of power. She wasn't unkind. She was simply guarded, as if the world had taught her early that vulnerability came with a cost. She surprised him next when she asked if he needed help. Her, the CEO of a tech empire, offering help to a man whose biggest accomplishment that morning was remembering to preheat the oven. Arden laughed softly, not mocking her, just overwhelmed. She wasn't joking. That stunned him more than her appearance at his door. She spent the next half hour in his kitchen, observing how he managed everything, tying Nira's shoelaces with practiced gentleness, plating the breakfast, answering her endless questions about dinosaurs and drawing. Celestine had never been in a space like his, so warm, so messy, so alive. Her eyes kept drifting to the little hand-painted notes Nira taped on the fridge. "Papa, you're my hero. Best bread maker ever. Don't be sad, Papa, I love you." Those notes lingered in Celestine's gaze longer than anything else. Then Arden burned himself on the oven rack. It wasn't serious, barely a touch, but he winced sharply, and reflex overrode her Ice Queen reputation. Celestine reached for him instantly, grabbing his wrist gently, inspecting the skin like a doctor. Her voice lowered, almost tender. "You need rest, Arden, real rest." It was the first time she said his name, and something inside him unlocked. He hadn't realized how long it had been since anyone said his name gently, without demands, without expectations. As the day moved forward, Celestine joined him and Nira on a walk to the park. She walked with an unfamiliar uncertainty, like she had forgotten what sunlight felt like on a weekday morning. Nira showed her how to skip rocks. Celestine tried once, failed miserably, and the small embarrassed laugh only made Arden's chest squeeze in a way he wasn't prepared for. She wasn't cold, she was lonely. She wasn't intimidating, she was tired. And she wasn't heartless. She had simply never been allowed the space to be anything else. But as the afternoon shifted, and she prepared to leave, something unspoken hung in the air between them, fragile, impossible, hopeful. She hesitated at her car door, looking back at Arden with a softness she likely didn't show anyone else. "Your message was a mistake," she said, "but today wasn't." And then she left. For the next week, everything changed. Celestine began appearing in Arden's life in small, unexpected ways, dropping by with lunch when she knew he was rushing, sending Nira a sketchbook because she noticed the old one nearly full, calling Arden during her commute not for business but because she said talking to him calmed her mind. She didn't admit she was lonely, but Arden heard it between her silences, in the careful way she asked about his day. The more they spoke, the more she thawed, not all at once, not dramatically, but in subtle human ways. She smiled more, she breathed differently. She even confessed that her enormous success came from a place of fear. Fear of being overlooked, fear of being weak, fear of losing everything she built. Arden understood. Fear shaped both of them, just in different languages. But Arden still struggled, money problems worsening, exhaustion stacking like bricks. He didn't want help, he wanted dignity. He wanted to stand on his own feet. Yet some nights, when Nira fell, asleep early and the weight of everything settled heavy on his chest, he found himself rereading Celestine's messages. They felt like warmth in a world that had grown too cold. Then came the day when everything snapped. Arden got a notice from his landlord, rent increase, one he couldn't afford. He sank to the floor in the hallway, holding the letter, trying not to break. Nira had just told him that morning she wanted to join a small art class. He had smiled and promised they'd try. Now the promise felt like a lie. When Celestine arrived unannounced that afternoon, she found him sitting silently at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. She understood instantly. She sat beside him without saying a word, letting the silence settle between them like a shared burden. She didn't try to fix it. She didn't offer money. She simply stayed. And sometimes presence is the greatest kindness of all. After a long pause, Arden spoke, voice cracking. He admitted how tired he was of failing, how scared he was of losing his home, how deeply he feared being unable to give Nira the life she deserved. His vulnerability was raw, unfiltered, trembling. Celestine reached across the table and held his hand. Her grip was firm, steady, human. "You're not failing," she said quietly. "You're fighting. And you don't have to fight alone." Her words weren't pity, they were respect. And in that moment, Arden believed her. Over the next days, Celestine showed up more consistently. She helped without intruding, bringing groceries without making a scene, reading to Nira while Arden napped, encouraging him gently to take opportunities he had talked himself out of. She even introduced him to someone who helped him secure a job in graphic design, something he had long given up on pursuing again. It wasn't charity, it was partnership. Something between them deepened, not rushed, not flashy, but steady and genuine, built on trust and the quiet ways two lives can intertwine without force. Soon Celestine began, staying longer, helping Nira with homework, sharing stories of her own lonely childhood, letting Arden see the cracks in her armor. He learned about the pressure she carried, the expectations placed on her shoulders. He saw the softness she hid, the warmth she didn't know how to express. They became each other's restoration. One evening, as the sunset painted their small living room gold, Celestine watched Arden and Nira laughing together while shaping clay animals on the coffee table. She wasn't participating, she was observing. But her eyes were filled with something warm and unguarded. She realized then, Arden wasn't just someone who sent a mistaken text. He was someone who reminded her what being human felt like. Near the end of the night, when Nira had fallen asleep on the couch, Celestine sat beside Arden. Silence stretched between them again, the kind that wrapped rather than distanced. Arden turned to her, seeing that softness in her eyes, and asked if she regretted showing up that morning. Celestine shook her head slowly. "That message you sent, it was the best mistake that's ever happened to me." The world seemed to pause in the quiet glow of the room. Arden gently brushed a strand of hair from her cheek, and Celestine leaned into the touch, finally letting herself be vulnerable. And in that soft, fragile moment, something beautiful bloomed: hope, second chances, and the sense that two broken but brave people had found the place where they could heal. If this story touched your heart, even just a little, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Stories of Kindness, so we can continue bringing more soul-warming stories to you. Special request: comment below what moment in the story hit you the hardest.